What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. I'm your host, Derek Larger. Joining me, Landon from Blue Stable and Drake from the Horseshoe Huddle. Gentlemen, we got another video here, and this one is probably going to be a spicy one because we're talking about the one man that Colts Nation does not want to have around the team, and it is Jeff Saturday, ladies and gentlemen. We have to talk about it again until the Colts hire a new coach, but we're going to talk about this because it's been going around a lot this week especially. I don't know what it is. And I don't know about Drake because I haven't seen his tweets too much on something like this. I know Landon has been catching on to it, and I know a bunch of other people, especially at Blue Stable, have caught on to it, where I don't know if you've seen it, but like a lot of the national media people have been pushing out tweets over the last week talking about how they believe that Jeff Saturday is the main candidate and the lead candidate for the Indianapolis Colts head coaching job for whatever reason that may be. But I want to hear from you, Landon. What do you think is going on with why we see so many people in the national media talking about how Jeff Saturday remains the favorite to get the job again?
Well, I mean, it's very simple. I know this is going to be a fun subject to cover for sure. I don't know if you follow me, but I've been trying to calm people down. I'm talking people off the ledge every day now. Everything's chill. Everybody just be chill. It's going to get taken care of in time. There's no need to panic. But as far as, the media blitz that Saturday's put on, I mean, that's pretty much just what it's been. Is Jeff's reached out to he's reached out to local media. Obviously the Greg Doyle story that came out, Kevin Bowen even spoke on it, that, he had reached out to some local media people, and he's got his national media friends. We know Jeff Saturday is a member of that club, that media club. And while he doesn't have, I know Drake, he said something about, we talk about connections with head coaches and, they're able to hire this staff and this staff and this staff because they have so much experience coaching. It's the same with Jeff Saturday in the media. That's where his connections are in the media, and specifically the national media. So he's able to, reach out to guys and say like, hey, keep my name out there. Keep, hopefully.
Do you actually think that's what he's doing? Because I heard people talking about that, like as if because that's not a proven detail, but that's been something that everyone's speculating, that Saturday is talking to these people in the media, telling them to keep his name relevant to hopefully, keep him in the loop for the head coaching job. Do you really think that's something that Jeff Saturday is doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly do. And this isn't like, a sourced information or anything. This is just strictly my opinion on this. But yeah, I do think that's what he's doing. And I mean, I don't really even see much of an issue with it, honestly, if I'm being completely honest, because he's doing what he has to do to try to, keep his name relevant in the conversations. And look, he is an actual candidate for this job. This wasn't, kind of a dog and pony show, per se, but he's a guy that Jim Irsay likes. He wanted to see him go through the interview process and get a fair interview process, for better or for worse. And that's kind of what's happening right now. It's like he's just getting an interview. He hasn't been hired. He's not even the favorite. I don't even think that he ends up as one of the recommendations to the ownership for the hire. And one of the ways that he's able to do that is because he does have so many connections. He does have so many friends in the media that he can say, hey, whenever you hear something about these other candidates, if you could just, try to tweet out something nice for me. We saw the funny Dan Orlovsky tweet, from the other day about, he's led in this many first quarters and he's led in this many times. I mean, it doesn't take, the brightest crayon in the box to connect 2 + 2. I mean, look, 2 + 2 = 4. And that's just kind of what I'm going here. Like I said, this is just my opinion. It's not sourced information or anything like that, but I'm just connecting the dots. And yeah, I mean, I think that's what he's doing. And I think it's a good strategy for him. I think he's doing the thing that any one of us would do if we had those connections.
Drake, what's your take on the national media really just exploding this Jeff Saturday stuff?
I know that it's strictly, speculation. It hasn't been quote unquote proven, but kind of to Landon's point, I mean, that is if Saturday, which look, I think any one of us, if we randomly had a billionaire call us and say, "Hey, do you want to coach my football team?" and you realized it was the NFL, you'd probably take it regardless. You'd be like, all right, let's give this a shot. Well, you'd want that back. Okay. And you would use everything you can within, lawful means, of course, to get that job back. Well, I was telling Landon, and he kind of like brought it up, is Raheem Morris is like bragged about for all of his coaching, connections. He knows everyone at every team and anywhere. Saturday kind of has that exact same style, only in the media of like ESPN level people. So I mean, you'll hear it on you'll hear it on the highest level of shows where they're kind of toting him up a little bit. Like the first quarter stat, it's like, man, you really got to split hairs for that, don't you? It's like, man, you really got to dig deep. I respect it. So it's like kind of back to what Landon said. I don't really fault him for it. He's trying to get the head coaching job, and he's been labeled as a legitimate candidate. He's just doing what he has to do, using what he can to get that job.
And here's the thing too, is a lot of people almost kind of do the same thing in real life. Like whenever you're trying to get hired onto a place and say, somebody that works there, you're friends with somebody that can get your name out there. What do? You reach out to them and say, hey, put in a good word for me. Make sure, bring my name up to the owner, bring my name up to the GM, the guy who's doing the hiring. This happens every day in other fields as well. So, and a lot of people probably listen to the show. I know even myself, like I've also done that with, jobs that I've worked at where I've had friends there and I'm like, hey, if you guys are hiring, put in a good word, put my name out there. So I don't think it's really anything that's surprising. I don't think it's anything that's off base or crazy. He's just doing what he has to do.
That is quite possible. I think one other thing, I'm sure obviously Jeff Saturday has some friends at ESPN. Clearly, they have a view about him from a personal opinion. But I will say this. I think, and you guys can chime in on this, I think that from a national media perspective, I think the national media is also rooting for him to get it because, and we talked about this right before we hopped on, they're hoping he gets it so they can trash the Colts one more time for doing it and push another narrative that the Colts owner, Jim Irsay, has lost his mind and it just doesn't care anymore. Because remember what the outrage was by the national media on Good Morning Football, ESPN, Fox Sports, all these major networks talking about what a travesty it is to the game and to the integrity of football that Jeff Saturday, who never had coaching experience before, got an interim head coaching job for 8 games for the Indianapolis Colts. They said it was the worst thing that has ever happened in the history of football. But yet, and then I think they're hoping that they do it again so these people can then go out and say, we keep telling you the Colts owner, Jim Irsay, he's racist and that he doesn't know what he's doing and that, things are just not good in Indianapolis and why they hired him again. We can't understand it. And we just think it's ridiculous that the Colts are putting on this show for everyone. And it's not cool for all these coaching candidates that actually deserve a shot. I mean, am I wrong for Drake? Am I wrong for insinuating that the Colts hope, or the national media hopes that he gets it so that they can see him fail again?
Well, I mean, look, the way that everything went down, first off, I want to state something. The Rooney Rule does not apply to an interim head coach.
Right.
Okay. It just doesn't. So let's just go ahead and get that out of the way. So when Irsay was up there, he did he talked about sausage making and he talked about, Michael Jordan, and he talked about, he was kind of like, saying, a lot. But listen, when he said we're within the rights of the Rooney Rule, He was absolutely not kidding. Yes, it was perfectly fine what he did. The backlash came from, you have guys like Bubba Ventrone, you have guys like John Fox, on the staff. You have guys like Gus Bradley on the staff. I mean, you could have gone to just about anybody else, and out of nowhere, you just pick Jeff Saturday. And I remember watching the ESPN clip of them breaking the news, and the anchors were like, "Our colleague, Jeff Saturday, is the new head coach of the Colts." And you could tell they didn't know what the heck to say. So, I mean, they were also shocked. The same people that are supporting him right now are absolutely shocked. So, yeah, it was mostly, I think, backlash should have been because you have qualified candidates. So I don't think that he broke any rules. He just kind of made a loopy decision, went with a guy that he knew from the glory days. He knew a guy. I mean, Jeff Saturday's smart. Okay, he was the general of the offensive line that protected Peyton freaking Manning. So I get why he went with him, but it was just a disaster decision. You fired a guy that dedicated 4.5 years to your franchise midseason over the phone. So it's like that also plays into the hate towards Irsay. So for Jim's sake, I really will go. I'll say this. I think that he is going to make the right decision. And I truly believe that he is plugged into the fan base and is going to pick a guy that is going to put this fan base back on track, not create more news headlines.
Yeah, and like, just to piggyback off that, like, I don't necessarily think the national media wants to do it just so they can trash the Colts, but what generates money in today's world? And that's clicks, that's hot takes, that's headlines, that's all that kind of stuff. And I think they possibly could be rooting for it to happen just because it's a huge talking point. It gets the clicks, it gets the interaction, it gets it makes money, and that's what they're all about, is making that money. And so I don't think it's really out of character for them to want the craziest thing to happen, because that's what a lot of people thrive off of, is the media and the fan bases and stuff. Like good news is boring. Nobody likes good news. I mean, but what gets the clicks and what gets people talking is negative news and crazy stuff, and the all the hot takes. That's why you see shows with Emmanuel Acho with the social media quarterback, and Skip Bayless with the LeBron James stuff. And I mean, it's that kind of stuff is what sells in today's league. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting, but yeah, I agree. That I do think that Irsay is very hyper aware of the situation. I don't think that I think he likes Jeff. I think he respects Jeff, and he wants Jeff to get a fair shot. But I don't necessarily think that it's going to end up being one of the guys that makes it to the recommendation for him to hire.
Yeah. I mean, we all know Colts fans definitely don't want that. We have a petition going out amongst Colts Nation that has over 3,800 signatures at this point, telling the Colts to not hire Jeff Saturday as the head coach. I mean, listen, guys, I don't know if you've seen anything like that before. I've seen times where, like fake petitions went out for like when Chuck Pagano was coming back. I know that there was like a few hundred that signed it, but I've never seen a movement where, a good solid percentage of the Colts fan base is online signing a petition expressing their hatred for not wanting Jeff Saturday on this team right now. I mean, Drake, what's your reaction to that and how Colts fans are taking that?
I mean, look, I go back to the Manning Luck syndrome. Okay, you're spoiled for 20 years with the same quarterback. That's why there's so much frustration over get the right guy, get the right guy, get the right guy, get the right guy constantly. Yeah. Well, you also had some stability at coaching because you had the buffer of Jim Caldwell, but you had Dungy, and then you had Pagano, and then you had Reich. So you've had at least 4 to 5 years of consistent coaching. So there's been a lot of consistency. A lot of teams don't get that. So I totally understand, being emotional about it. But to Landon's point, this is just a coaching candidate. This is a guy that I hope people can at least try to look into. Put yourself in the shoes of Jim Irsay. You have a team that is you're one more dumb decision away, one more emotionally charged decision away from losing your entire fan base. Okay. I mean, his father fired an entire coaching staff while they were on the field. Like, so
at halftime in the preseason game.
yeah, like, and so he's held back from that. And you saw a little snippet of Bob, but look, man, I really don't think that Jim Irsay is going to hire Jeff Saturday. I personally do not think it's going to happen. You have to prepare yourself just because you saw him do it to a degree, but I really don't think that he's going to hire Jeff Saturday. So I don't think that the backlash that's gotten to the level it is really warranted at this point.
Landon, what do you think of Colts fans signing petitions that mean absolutely nothing to show their hatred for Jeff Saturday?
I mean, I'm never gonna be one that tells fans how to react. It's within their right. We did a podcast last night, and fan is short for fanatic. That's what it's short for.
Yeah.
And so fans they're always gonna push things to the extreme, and you see it in every decision. So I mean, there's gonna be fans that are unhappy that Jeff Saturday didn't get the job. There's going to be fans that are happy Jeff Saturday didn't get the job. Like I said, I don't expect it to happen. So this is like hypotheticals, but there's always a percentage of your fan base that you're never going to satisfy. And that's perfectly fine. I mean, you can't walk around trying to make everybody happy, but I do think Jim Irsay is very aware of the public perception. I mean, we've seen it now with, hashtag TY come home, hashtag Chuck stay. I mean, we've seen the fan base be able to make their voices heard. Jim Irsay be very hyper aware of the pulse of where his fans are because he is active on Twitter. It's not like a social media firm that's running his Twitter account. He is actually on the internet. So he sees all these things. And I think he understands the pulse of where it would be from around the league, where it ends up with his fans and all that stuff. And, one of the great things that happened after the season ended was him and Chris Ballard sat down and they had a very long conversation about the direction of this franchise. And Chris Ballard, doing his job and being allowed to do his job. And, last season was last season. Let's move forward together. We're in this together. Let's go get this right and let's turn this around. And Jim Irsay was very acceptable to that. And that's why you see, he didn't sit in on any of the first round interviews. He's letting Chris Ballard conduct this search. His daughter, Carly, has actually been more involved up to this point than he has. So now you're seeing Jim Irsay get involved now that they've made it through the second round. And he just wants to hear Jeff Saturday out. He wanted a chance to sit down with Jeff Saturday, hear what he had to say. But at the end of the day, Chris Ballard will take his recommendations. It might be one guy, it might be, a couple guys. And he'll present those to Jim Irsay. And Jim Irsay, even himself, has stated, like, he has never not taken the recommendation when they're doing a coaching search. I know the interim thing last year was its own thing. But whenever they're conducting an actual coaching search, he has never not taken the advice of his general manager. And I think you're going to see that, play true. I think he's going to be true to his word.
I certainly hope so. And I'll just say this right off the top. Like, I'm not anyone who did sign the petition. Look, I'm not at a situation. I just laugh at it because it's something that I wouldn't do. That's just me. I just know that I would rather take my 30 seconds of pretending to sign a petition somewhere else. But at the end of the day, like, again, I'm not going to tell somebody how to be a fan. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion on how they want to be a fan. I may mock how you do it every now and again, but that doesn't mean that I think any less of you as a fan for doing it, because everyone has their differing ways to do things like that. But, I do think it's been wild. It's been really wild. For Jeff Saturday of all people, like, I think that we as fans never could quite understand just being in that position. Like, if I try hard sometimes to not be that wild, because I like to think of myself in that situation, right? I was brought in to do a job. I tried to do the job. I didn't do a great job of the job, but I'm trying again to be a part of it because I'm given the opportunity to do it. And here I am. I've got tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people praying that I fail. And they want me to see me burn at the stake. I would hate to be in that situation. I just couldn't imagine it. I know it comes with the game. That's what happens when you get into professional sports. That's the thing that you sign up for. You sign up for scrutiny amongst fans. But at some point, it does get a little crazy, to say the least. And at least the good thing is, if you're not a fan of Jeff Saturday, at least the good news is there are some more interviews that the Colts are conducting still. We were just talking about it before we got on here that Raheem Morris was having his interview today. He was actually in the building for quite some time. Pretty sure he's probably done at this point, but it was the longest interview that the Colts have had so far. So clearly that they are showing interest in Raheem Morris for a lot of different reasons. But there's still more. Martindale's going to have his on Saturday. And I assume that there will probably be some more interviews this upcoming week. From all the rest of it, guys, I mean, we'll end it with this. I mean, who's the top three that you're looking at right now? Because obviously, Callahan, Steichen, and Ryans and Bieniemy are four guys that we all wanted to have interviews with, but aren't able to do this week because of the NFL rules to it. But there can be some more interviews done next week. I don't know about Ryans at this point. For me, that seems like a pipe dream. We haven't even gotten an interview with him yet. And from what it sounds like is most likely he's going to either Denver or Houston at this point. But outside of that, Landon, like, who's the top three that you're really looking at right now for favorites for this job?
Yeah, I would say obviously Raheem Morris would be in that group. To me, he's probably the prohibitive favorite right now to land the job. And then I think Ejiro Evero is a guy that he interviewed extremely well. They were extremely impressed by him. And, I think he could end up sneaking in possibly and making that final cut down. And I want to say, because they haven't requested an interview yet with some of the other guys, and that probably wouldn't happen until Monday after this weekend's games. But I would say Shane Steichen was really impressive in his interview. And Brian Callahan was also a guy that I heard interviewed very strongly with them. And, he kind of took things from the approach of, this is my vision. And we know, I was on a show with Destin the other day on Saddle Up, and he was talking about how Jim Irsay is, a dreamer, and he loves, to think big, and he's real big about vision and, what's your possibilities for the future, 3 Super Bowls in a row, that kind of stuff. And one of the things Callahan did was he sold a vision of how he wanted to bring what he's done in Cincinnati and what he would even improve on that they've done in Cincinnati if he was able to run his own team. And that was really impressive to Chris Ballard as well. So I think there's a strong likelihood you probably see Steichen, you probably see Callahan, at least one of those two guys get a second call back early on in the week. They'll go through their interviews, and those would probably be my three. I think it would be Morris, Evero, and either Steichen / Callahan, or possibly even both of them.
Drake, what say you?
I really like that take. I'm kind of down the same line. I do think it really matters. You start with the coach, then you're going to be drafting the quarterback. But man, I think that a guy like Anthony Richardson, if they took a crazy flyer on him, a guy like Shane Steichen fits a running quarterback perfectly, especially with what he's done with Hurts. But for me, I think number one right now, especially just based off of what we've heard, which I'd be a fan of, is Raheem Morris. True leader. He's got another opportunity a decade later after being, I think, what was it, Landon? He's like 32 as the coach. of the Buccaneers.
Yeah, he was 32 years old.
Ridiculously young. I am 32, and I just don't understand how that's even possible that someone that young could coach an NFL team. So, let alone Josh Freeman led. So I think that he's the number one guy right now. I think that you definitely have to throw Callahan in there with the sheer offensive volume he's been able to put through with 3 injured linemen. You've made Samaje Perine a legitimate threat to on a running offense. You factored that in with Higgins and with Chase and with Burrow. Great fit for a quarterback. And then I do think that this is kind of a wild card, but Eric Bieniemy, to me, I think that with the ties, and I think that with just how Irsay seems like Irsay and Ballard might I wanted to do a wild card one. I think that that's probably the one guy that I would say a lot of people aren't talking about that may get the gig. But more realistically, it'd be a guy like Shane Steichen, I think. So it'd be Callahan, Steichen, and Morris.
Yeah, I don't remember what the what podcast is Ryan Clark and those guys on. I don't know if anyone.
Yeah, it's not actually a podcast. It's actually a show on YouTube. So
right.
You'll have to go watch it on YouTube. But I actually posted a clip earlier on the.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought you were the one that posted it. Yeah. So anyone that wants to know what I'm referring to here in a second, go look at Landon's Twitter. He posted this clip and he posted the full video on there as well. But it was when they talked about Raheem Morris's time as that head coach and asking him whether or not it was fair the way they fired him. And he, made no excuses for it. He talked about the process, talked about the good things that they did, talked about the bad things that he did. How he lost those 10 games in a row after being 4-2 and lost 10 in a row, and they cut ties with him. And he's like, whether or not you view it as fair is on you. I can't speak for your mind, but for me, they gave me the opportunity. I blew it. I lost 10 in a row, I'm not going to be the guy that says that's unfair to do because they gave me the opportunity. They didn't think I did a good enough job, so they cut me. It's just how it is. So he's like, I take accountability for that. I got to own up to it. And I loved hearing that because it sounded very genuine the way he said it. There was no change in the tone of his voice or nothing. And, we keep talking about accountability. We keep hearing all these coaches say accountability. That seems like a guy that actually does understand the accountability aspect to it. And like we said, he's so young and, dealing with all of that. And it's a different time now. It was over a decade ago. There's a perfect opportunity for the guy who's been around the league for 10 years now after that and has had time to grow, has a lot of connections, could definitely be. I think at this point, he might be my number 3, even over Mike Kafka at this point. I would definitely still want Callahan and Steichen. Anyone that's seen my Twitter over the last few days knows that I want the Bengals and the Eagles to lose this weekend, just so that way their seasons are over and their assistant coaches can just focus on interviews, and hopefully we can land one of them by the end of the week. That's my dream scenario, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, those two and definitely Raheem Morris. But I think that's going to do it for this one, guys. We talked a little bit about the Jeff Saturday hype going around the media and who our favorite guys are to end it. But again, want to thank Landon and Drake so much for for hopping in tonight and helping me with some of these videos. Greatly appreciate them. Make sure to go check out their work at Blue Stable and the Horseshoe Huddle. Great Colts content, guys. I absolutely love working with them. Thank you, everyone who's tuning in. Let us know your thoughts on all of this news. Thank you so much for all the support. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, guys, go Colts.